Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
So this is for anybody who is an entrepreneur. Maybe you're a leader, maybe you own a company, maybe you're on a team. I have found an amazing effectiveness coach. I didn't know it existed until I met Robyn Fountain, and she graced us with the Fountain Effect. She coaches people all the time for success. Now, we mentioned entrepreneur and we mentioned leader. A lot of people put them in the same category, but they're vastly different. We're going to learn all about that today and how you can up your game, regardless of whether you are an entrepreneur or a leader. Robyn Fountain joins us today. Hey, Robyn, how are you?
Good morning, Steve. Now we see each other face to face. The voice sounds the same, but this is the first time we've seen faces in this process.
I love it. When we do video, it makes I find that I'm more connected to you and just and if you're listening to this and not watching it, it's all good. It's even better because there's the exchange of energy. I'm big on energy, so I feel the exchange here, and super interested to learn about the difference between entrepreneurs and leaders, because you're saying they're not the same, and I'm thinking that they can be, or maybe there are some parallels. Let's break that down.
So, there's certainly going to be parallels on either side, entrepreneur or a leader. They are willing to rise up, or they feel compelled to rise, to go forward and, break some barriers. But I think the biggest difference, not that there aren't natural born leaders, but leaders can be developed. They can grow into a position. And then depending on what they come up against, how they respond to that may be very different, because often they are representative of another company, organization, and they might be a little bit more risk averse. And they have to take into consideration what is best for the organization, what's best for the company, what's best for their team, as well as putting aside maybe their own needs and their own agenda. Whereas an entrepreneur, I don't know that you can create an entrepreneur. There's so much to it. I mean, first of all, there's the ideas, and a lot of us have great ideas, but to be able to risk everything to go forward, to see problems as opportunities to solve in order to move forward, instead of problems as issues to avoid, mitigate, push through in order to keep going on the original trajectory that a company might want. They take very different things, and they both take gumption, and they both take courage. But entrepreneurs often are going to be a lone wolf, at least initially. They might eventually put together a team, but those initial stages, it's just them, and one other person. And they may rise to becoming a leader of an organization as it grows, a company. I'm just going to throw out there, I don't know that much about him, but Steve Jobs and his, partners, when they were developing the computer in the garage, and he ends up being the head of a huge organization. But all along, really, he's an entrepreneur at heart. Some people become leaders. They get kind of sucked up through the vacuum of empty spaces. We hear somebody that might be very good at sales, and they become a sales manager, and now they're not being successful because they're not a manager. The skills that they use to do sales are not as effective in leading a team. And so now they're the leader, they're the boss, but they don't have the respect of their team, because the skills that people want in a leader, they're not necessarily displaying, because now they have to look out for a bigger group, a bigger swath of the company. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, so deep question here. Let's say you're somebody who started a business and it's going okay. Are you considered an entrepreneur? And if it's not growing, and you haven't really figured it out, could that potentially mean that you're not really an entrepreneur and maybe not cut out for it?
I think what it means is that entrepreneurs try to do too much, unless somebody has this amazing idea, they get a patent, they go on Shark Tank, they get venture capitalist investors, they get angel investors. They're usually bootstrapping it, and they're not having a marketing person, they're not having an advisor, and they're not having a bookkeeper, and they're not having somebody that does market research. They're trying to do it all themselves. And so by the nature of not succeeding financially, it doesn't mean that they're not an entrepreneur. Some people are serial entrepreneurs. We only see this big thing that happened 10 ideas later. And then we come to find out, oh, well, and they did this, and they did this, and they did this, and they didn't succeed. But that lone wolf mentality doesn't work. And so sometimes, even if they don't even have a team, sometimes it is helpful to either work with a mentor or a coach, two different things, to at least have somebody to brainstorm, to at least have somebody to help them separate, like I was talking about last time about priorities. Everything's a priority when you're an entrepreneur, and mostly it's get to market and get some cash back in my pocket. Whereas in a leadership position, there might be urgent things that come up, but usually the cash is there unless you're turning around a company. You're brought in to turn a company around, but there's usually a little bit more space to sit back and consider and then see what resources you have, the right people in the right seat. Are there resources that could be reallocated to turning the company around? But it can also be harder because as a leader, once you change your mind, shift your mindset, you have to get everybody on board with you. Whereas an entrepreneur has the ability to be a little bit more agile. Oh, this isn't working. Let me try this. But let's not get caught up in the new shiny thing. Because that's a lot of energy. That's a lot of hamster on the wheel, just going round, and never stopping to take stock.
What I'm hearing from you is that many entrepreneurs are the lone wolf and everything's a priority. And they're so focused on one thing that they don't know how to prioritize. Of course, cash flow is important, but everything becomes a priority. And many times a lot of things slip through the cracks. And doing it alone is challenging. You have nobody to bounce stuff off of. You don't have anybody really to talk deeply about your situation and what's going on there. Is an entrepreneur a business owner? Or does an entrepreneur have to be somebody who is more innovative, if you will, more cutting edge?
I think that there's a little bit of crossover because in the middle there is the small business owner, has an idea. There's not it's not a revolutionary idea, but it's something that they're passionate about. And so I'll use somebody that I met many years ago. He had owned a little coffee stand in the bottom floor of the courthouse. So, selling coffee all day, did great with that. But he really wanted to be a bar owner. And he had all the ideas and he had the concept, and he had got a financial partner for that. And so he's not really an entrepreneur. He's not breaking any ground. But it was, a unique idea to him, but also what he wanted, what he loved about the bar business. He liked the schmoozing. He liked the talking. He liked going around and, having the musicians come in and being behind the bar, but he was a terrible manager. He would get frustrated. He would scream at his employees. He would, have temper tantrums. And he did not have the mindset of a leader. Problems made him a victim. Problems didn't make him stronger, kind of thing. And so there is a crossover. And I think entrepreneurs can become small business owners, but it's not all the time. They might be the inventor.
But now that I'm seeing it, in a different light as you're explaining it, where a Yes, an entrepreneur could be, I've got the next big idea, the ABC widget. Nobody's ever thought of the ABC. We're going to do this. Put them over there on that side. But entrepreneur can and is a business owner or a small business owner because essentially every business is different. Unless it's a franchise, you could have a surf shop in this town and there's a surf shop, let's say 25 miles away. You're selling a lot of the same stuff, but this one has a different identity than this one. And you've worked hard as an entrepreneur to establish this one as let's say it's this. I'm going hypothetical here. This is a surf shop for middle-aged people. Nobody's ever done that before. This one is all ages surf shop. This one caters to people that are, 40 plus, whatever it might be. But that could make you the entrepreneur because it's a fresh spin, tiny spin on just something that's already been out there already.
Yeah, but overall though, it's that spark of ingenuity and wanting to do things different and the creativity that can really restrict an entrepreneur because they think that they have to do everything themselves. They're coming up themselves and they are not used to having a team. They're not used to delegating and they don't always see their blind spots. And then they get into trouble either financially. I don't want to say legally, although sometimes there can be some HR problems once they start to bring people on. Maybe they think, oh, I should have an intern to help me. And you have a college kid that really wants to intern in this, except actually unpaid internships are not legal unless somebody's getting college credit. And there's certain criteria for college credit, right? So they're like focused on the prize and like, oh, great. And now I want to mentor this kid that's coming up behind me. And didn't even think like, oh, this is actually a labor issue. This is an employment issue. Or get way behind not knowing about how to pay quarterly taxes. And all the money's going in their pocket. It's going into their personal bank account. Nobody told them set up a business bank account. Nobody told them how to structure their business or even suggested to them, this is something you might want to think about.
Yep.
Now, there's a lot more information out there now. And I was watching kind of a well-known finance guy clip, and there was a 17-year-old kid who was bringing in 50 grand a month doing e-commerce. He's probably has gotten some guidance on that, on what to do with his money. So anyway, you have this entrepreneur, they're living hand to mouth for a year, and then all of a sudden it's time to file their taxes, and they owe, not only do they owe $20,000 in taxes, but now there's penalties.
Yeah.
They weren't aware of that. Now they're more behind than they were before. Had they acknowledged that they don't know everything, that their strengths aren't in every area, they might have been able to avoid that a little bit earlier on.
Are you somebody as an effectiveness coach that works with entrepreneurs and leaders that can look at those things? Let's say Jim is an entrepreneur. He invented the ABC widget. Maybe he got on Shark Tank. Fantastic. But he doesn't have any business skills. Would you be somebody that helps him grow, but also can look at that and say, Jimmy, did you know you got to pay quarterly taxes? Or you may want to check into that, or you may want to get a financial advisor or an accountant. Are you the 360 person in that regard?
Exactly. So obviously I'm not an expert.
Sure.
But as we go through discussions, I'm going to say, so who's your resource for, do you have a resource for, making sure all your finances are in order? Who's your resource? Who are you looking at for your contracts? Do you have maybe it's LegalZoom or what they have, like prepaid legal services, like even that for, well, I can't afford an attorney. Well, maybe for $100 a month you can, and like help them see the risk and reward of making certain choices.
Yeah.
And then direct them to resources, or saying not a specific person, but here's, a list of things that you might want to look into. And because I do also offer some hands-on tactical assistance. I might say, if you don't have time to do this, let me not put something else on your plate. Let me after our call, I'm going to spend about an hour. I'm going to research this. I'm going to come back to you with a list that's been vetted down to the top 3, and then you're going to make that choice after that. So that's where, I'm a little bit different in not only doing the coaching side or the consulting side, but also not adding something to your plate, but maybe actually taking something off, and then it's going to be done. It's going to be gone.
Or showing somebody from a different angle that you really shouldn't be doing this. This is taking up a lot of your time and it's not where you're proficient. If you want to grow, you need to focus over here. So therefore, instead of you invoicing or worrying about get a bookkeeper. You really, for a minimal cost, get a bookkeeper to take care of that so you can just push that off to the side.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So part of what I do is look at where there are gaps, look at where there are pain points, and then, dive deeper into. So, what have you been thinking about? Well, I haven't been thinking about it because it just stresses me out, and I can't, I don't even know. I also recently started, there's a agency called Mercy Corps Northwest. They do a lot of different things, but one of the programs they have is micro mentors. So there are people who volunteer to mentor startup entrepreneurs. And I just recently started doing that. I actually have a couple of meetings this week with some people, and the one woman has an idea, and I actually wrote to her and I said, if she wanted somebody to help her with marketing. And I wrote to her and I looked up her idea. She was trying to do some market research, couldn't find information. I just did my Google Whisperer thing and came up with an article from a few years ago on something similar that might lead her to some other resources. Mm-hmm. Said, hey, I don't think I'm the best person for you because marketing is not my strength, but I came across this article that you might think was interesting.
Sure.
She writes me back. She's like, thank you so much. I didn't even think of using this word when I was looking for what I was looking for. But I still think that you could really help me brainstorm and get unstuck. So we're going to have a call. So I'm not an expert in marketing, but she saw the other side of it and of course she's not paying because micro mentors are all volunteer, mm-hmm. but she realizes there's more to maybe marketing's not my problem. Maybe my issue is that I have really not settled on what my product is.
Yeah.
I really haven't settled on who my audience is, and that would suggest the price point for what I want to sell. And then do I want it to be mass market? And so now I'm all excited to talk to her about things that she might not have thought of because she was thinking about one path to go down. I found out how much it would be to manufacture these items in bulk. And I'm thinking pop-up shop. I'm thinking get a few items representative and find places where you could do a trunk show or a little pop-up and people can come and they can touch the thing and they can see it and they can see how it works in person, not going through social media or networking because that's not what it is. So I was super excited to, suggest that to her because I'm not stuck in the mire of I got to get this to market. I got to get it to market.
Exactly. And I think that is your supreme value where you're looking at it from a strategic growth perspective. Somebody like her is like, I got to get the word out. Got to get the word out, marketing wise, but you need to refine what you're getting the word out about before you even get to that point. And mm-hmm. you're seeing that. And I think she's seeing that through you.
And so that's super exciting, on my side.
Well, thanks for sharing that because that gives a different perspective of what you do. And if she did engage you, not on just the micro mentor platform, mm-hmm. which kind of cool idea. You can help her grow. You can take her along the way. Because if she starts growing, more money, more problems. There's more things that are going to come up that she's going to need to tackle and probably not prepared for that, because mm-hmm. she's focused on this one thing, the product.
And then I had another woman reach out to me. She's in Kampala, Uganda, in Central East Africa.
Mhm.
And she's in the agricultural business. And she's like, I've read your, platform. I think you could really help me. I'm like, I don't know anything about agriculture. I don't know how to get fresh eggs to market in Uganda. However, a couple of weeks ago, I came across a company called My Agro, located in Senegal and Mali and Tanzania, and they help small farmers with credit terms. So when she and I connect, I can't really help her, but I might have come across a resource that she never heard of because it's not in her region. It's at least at best a good 3-4 hour airline flight, if not more. And so, sometimes it's just connecting people to the other resource that can help them not be the hero for that. And I know I did say we were going to go like this today, but
no, but it gives you're giving a true background on what an effectiveness coach is. You are making people more effective, like truly doing that by giving them the resources, giving them the insight, letting them see things that they're not seeing. And we kind of hyper focused on the entrepreneur side here, while defining the difference between those and leaders. Just about out of time. I'd love to next time take a look at leaders now.
Let's do that. Let's focus on that, and I'll get my brain a little bit more in a singular trajectory. Although there's overlap, and I'm sure, listeners will all have their own opinion and their own experience. So I'll just say, this is just me. This is Robyn's world at the Fountain Effect, and go from there. But yeah, that would be great.
And anybody has a question, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. She's here to answer it. So next time, instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Robyn, how do we find you? Your website is
fountaineffect.com, Fountain FOUNTAINEFFECT, and then Robyn at fountaineffect.com. And I would love it if you had people sending questions
to
answer on the fly. That would be really sparking some other part of my brain. And that would be super fun.
Yeah, I learned a lot today. By the way, Robyn, ROBYN. I own a small business. I actually do marketing and radio and everything else. But I think in my mind, based on what we're talking about, am I an entrepreneur? Am I a leader? Because I have, some team members. So it gives you an interesting slice of, what's going on there and how to, kind of dissect it and how it applies to you. So super cool. Looking forward.
If you ever want to, just be super vulnerable in front of all your listeners, we could do a pop coaching session on one of our calls. If you bring something, kind of specific, we won't dive too deep into anything, but if you want to do that, that could be fun also for your listeners and watchers to see the process and hear the process.
I think we might just do that. I'll present something to you and then lean back and have you run with the ball and
see where it goes, and people can get more comfortable with what is it like, or what is it like with Robyn?
Sure. Show me what I'm doing wrong or what I could be doing better. That's a more positive way to look at it. Great having you on, Robyn. Really appreciate it and looking forward next time.
All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.